Now that you've learned the knit stitch, we can learn the purl stitch. In order to learn the purl stitch, it's helpful to review the knit stitch and compare the two. We are going to take this pin and mark this side as our knit side, and then the reverse side will be our purl side. So first, let's review the knit stitch. We start the knit stitch by entering from the bottom of the stitch, wrapping around and through. We keep the yarn in the back of our knitting. So we enter from the bottom of the stitch, wrap around and through. That's our knit stitch. Now we're going to turn it over and work on our purl stitch on the back side. The purl stitch, it's important to keep the yarn in the front of your work. So to start, you let the yarn hang down in the front of the work and enter the stitch from the top. We wrap around, same as the knit stitch, through and off. We enter from the top, wrap around, through and off. The yarn is in the front. We enter from the top, wrap around, through and off. So that's the purl stitch. Entering from the top, wrapping around, through and off. Around, through and off. Enter from the top, wrap around, through and off. Now we're going to flip it over and do the knit stitch again. Now for the knit stitch, we're keeping the yarn to the back and we're entering from the bottom of the stitch. So now we've done the knit stitch, we're starting to see the differences. We're going to do another row of the purl stitch on the back, keeping the yarn in front, entering from the top of the stitch. And then wrapping around, through, and off. Okay, now we're on the knit side. You can see all of the nice knit V's on this side compared to the garter stitch on the bottom there. Now on the back side, the purl side, we can see all the nice purl bumps and then the garter stitch at the bottom. So the knit stitch makes these nice V's and the purl stitch makes the bumps. For the knit stitch, we're entering from the bottom, taking the yarn from the back of the work, wrapping around, through, and off. Enter from the bottom for the knit stitch, and we enter from the top of the stitch for the purl stitch. So the differences are the knit stitch we enter from the bottom, the purl stitch we enter from the top, and the knit stitch we keep our yarn in the back, and the purl stitch we keep our yarn in the front. There's the knit, and there's the purl bumps. That's the knit stitch compared to the purl stitch.